At Rossdales Equine Diagnostic Centre, we've always invested heavily in the best advanced imaging equipment for our clients and their horses. Advanced imaging isn't necessary in every case, but where an X-ray or an ultrasound perhaps don't give us a specific diagnosis, an MRI, a CT scan or a bone scan can sometimes help. So the type of cases where an MRI scan is particularly useful is where the lameness has been localised very well, but we perhaps don't see a cause for the lameness on traditional imaging techniques such as X-ray and ultrasound. And in those cases, such as navicular syndrome, where there's a soft tissue component to the disease, or in certain stress fractures of the thoroughbred racehorse, an MRI scan can give us a definitive diagnosis rather than leaving us to wonder why. In cases where CT is particularly helpful are examining the dental arcades and nasal sinuses of horses, and we can do that under standing sedation, which is a real benefit because we try and avoid where we can anaesthetising horses. We can also use CT to investigate some orthopaedic conditions such as fractures, so it gives us exquisite detail of bone prior to surgery, and the surgeons find it particularly useful in looking at the configuration of complex fractures, and we can anaesthetise the horse, do the CT scan and then take the horse straight to surgery thereafter. Bone scan is very useful in cases where we perhaps haven't been able to localise the lameness, or perhaps there isn't a specific lameness, such as poor performance cases, horses with back pain, neck pain, which are difficult to image in other ways. At Rossdales we see all types of horses, from elite competition horses to thoroughbred racehorses and much loved ponies, and they all receive the same high level of care. Most of the advanced imaging techniques can now be done under standing sedation, and that includes bone scan, CT and MRI. And we're really pushing the boundaries of what we can expect the horses to tolerate us doing with them in some instances. And I'm very fortunate to be supported by a very experienced team of horse handlers and assistant veterinary surgeons to make sure that we get beautiful images safely.
We've just arrived here in the Diagnostic Centre yard, and we've just taken the full clinical history and a conversation with the owner, and now we move on to do the clinical examination, and that is actually the first point of contact with the horse, where we get a bit of a feel for the temperament of the horse and get to know the horse. And then we move on to do the actual clinical examination, which is split in two main parts. The first part is the palpation, where we feel the limbs and feel for swelling, heat or pain, and then we'll move on and take a bit of a step back from the horse and do the visual inspection, where we evaluate the conformation and look for asymmetries within the musculature and the actual skeleton of the horse.
The horse behind me came in earlier on today for investigation of a fore and hind limb lameness. At the moment we're concentrating on the hind limb lameness, and we like to see these horses on a variety of different surfaces. So we walk and trot them in a straight line, we lunge them on a hard surface, medium surface and a soft ground, because different types of lameness are going to be better or worse with the leg on the inside or the outside of the circle, and better or worse on the hard ground or the soft ground. So it's important to get a good overview of what that lameness looks like under different conditions. So we've started the investigation on the hind limb, so we're doing some nerve blocks on the hind limb, which means putting local anaesthetic around nerves or into joints, trotting the horse up and down afterwards and seeing whether that lameness has improved or has stayed the same.
So what we're doing here is evaluating the horse whilst being ridden. This is quite a useful part of the lameness evaluation, especially in cases that have poor performance, or if a lameness issue is only obvious when the horse is actually in work. Some horses only show a lameness doing particular movement. We had one last week that only showed issues in one-time temporary changes. Other times we even assess them jumping and see what the limiting factor is to their actual performance.
Another common cause of poor performance in the equine athlete is upper airway disease. Our state-of-the-art overground endoscopic system is invaluable for the diagnosis of a multitude of conditions that cause airway obstruction, capturing high-quality images and video while the horse is exercising under normal conditions, including at speed. This allows our clinicians to review images post-exercise to make quick and accurate diagnoses and decisions about treatment. Additional mini-monitors can be attached to the tag, combining the airway assessment with simultaneous ECG and GPS documentation of speed, distance and gradient to provide a detailed cardiorespiratory assessment.
The reasons why I use Rossdales, well, yeah, very simply, the diagnostic procedures that they have here are second to none. We can bring a horse and with all the experts that are here and all the equipment they've got, they can give us a very good diagnostic reports. And from my point of view, that's really important, that we know exactly which direction we're going to go in and what treatment each horse needs. And I think for today's modern show jumper and equine competition horse, you need to have this level of sophistication in their care and management, and that's the reason why we use Rossdales and have done for a number of years.